Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to crochet this simple but still super cute festival tank top. It features an easy square neck, which makes it the perfect first top pattern if you're new to crochet. You can find the full pattern on my website and I've linked to it in the description below as well. Alright, let's get started on this fun summertime top together. To make your top, you'll need the following materials. You'll need some DK weight yarn. I use Paintbox Yarn Simply DK in the color Coffee Bean. I love this yarn because it's machine washable and really affordable, and it also comes in a ton of colors, but you can use any DK weight yarn that you choose. You'll also need a size H8 or 5mm crochet hook, a pair of scissors, a tapestry or yarn needle to weave in ends and seam the sides together, and measuring tape. Okay, I also want to give a quick overview of the construction details so that you have a clear idea of how this top is put together. So it's crocheted flat in 2 identical panels for the front and back. Once the panels are ready, we'll seam them at the sides using a simple whip stitch. Then we'll crochet the straps directly onto the panels and add a single crochet border around the armholes to tidy them up. And then finally, we'll crochet around the bottom of the top to create the bottom edging in single crochet. The first thing we're going to do is make our foundation chain by making a slip knot and then chaining the amount of stitches that the pattern calls for. The top that I'm making for this tutorial is an extra small, so I'm going to chain 63. And to keep this tutorial to the point, I'm assuming that you already know the basics of crochet. So for this top, you'll need to know how to make a slip knot, how to chain, and how to single crochet. For those of you that are crocheting along with me, don't forget to keep the pattern close by so that you can follow the instructions for the size that you're making. And I forgot to mention that this top is worked from the bottom up. So we're going to make one big rectangle to cover the midsection, and then we're going to decrease as we get towards the top for the armholes. Now that we have the foundation chain out of the way, we can begin our first row. So we're going to single crochet in the second chain from the hook. And I like to crochet into the bumps of the foundation chain. So they're the part that sits on top of the V. Okay, so now we skip one chain and we single crochet in the next chain. And then chain 2, and then single crochet right back into that same chain. Now we're going to skip the next 2 chains. So we skip 2 chains and then we single crochet in the next chain. And this is basically the repeat. So we single crochet, chain 2, single crochet in a stitch, and then we skip the next 2 chains and then repeat all the way down to the last 3 stitches. So if you're following along with me, keep going until you reach the last 3 stitches, and then I'll show you how to finish the row. Okay, so I've just finished my last repeat by skipping the next 2 chains. There should be 3 chains remaining if you're following along. And what we're going to do is single crochet, chain 2, single crochet in the next chain. And that will leave 2 chains remaining. Then skip the next chain and single crochet in the last chain. So that makes the end of the row match the beginning of the row, where we had only skipped 1 chain to begin before we began a repeat of skipping 2 chains. And that's it for row 1. Turn your work and get ready to start row 2, which is very similar to row 1. So we will chain 1 to begin, and then we will begin our row by single crocheting in the first single crochet. So that was the last single crochet that we made from our previous row. And now we can begin our repeat of single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, but this time we're going to work into the next chain 2 space. So this is the chain 2 space that was created from row 1 when we had worked into the foundation chain. It can be a little tricky getting your hook into the chain 2 space, so what I do is I kind of just like gently wiggle it right into there and it finds its way through. So once you finished your first repeat, just continue along all the way down to the end of the row, and then I'll show you how to finish off row 2. Okay, at the end of row 2, once you finished your last repeat of the single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the next chain 2 space, you'll see that there is 1 single crochet stitch remaining at the very end of the row. That's where you want to work your final stitch. So just single crochet into that last single crochet and you're done row 2. So that's it. All you have to do is repeat row 2 until your panel is the amount of inches that the pattern calls for before we start decreasing the armholes. I'm going to continue working on the pattern and then I'll meet you back here to show you how to do the decreases. Now that the bottom portion of the front panel is complete, we can start decreasing along the sides to shape the armholes. Turn your work and chain 1 to begin the first decrease row. What we're going to do is, instead of single crocheting into the first single crochet, we will single crochet into the first chain 2 space. So we'll just completely skip that first single crochet. And then the rest of the row is the same. It's exactly like row 2 that we've been working all along. So for the remainder of the row, we're just gonna single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet into the next chain 2 spaces all the way until the end of the row. And I want to point out that the decreases only worked at the beginning of the row and not the end of the row. So continue to the end of the row, working your last single crochet into the last single crochet stitch, just like we have been doing all along. And then I'll show you how to do the next row. If you haven't already guessed, the second decrease row is exactly the same as the first decrease row because we want to mirror what we did on the other side. So we're going to do exactly what we did for the previous row. We're going to skip the first single crochet and then single crochet into the next chain 2 space. And this will give us a left leaning slant inwards for this side. So I'll work one more stitch and show you what I mean. Now the end of this row can be a little bit tricky to find where you want to work the last single crochet. So I'm going to work all the way down to the end and then show you how to make the last single crochet stitch of this row. At the end of the row, once you've finished working into the last chain 2 space, you'll see that there's one single crochet remaining, and you might be confused as to which stitch that is. So looking at my work, you can see that there's a little bit of a small tiny looking stitch at the end. That's not a stitch, that's a chain. So you want to work into the stitch right before that. That's the last single crochet. So single crochet right into there and then turn your work to begin the next row. The next 4 rows are all going to be the same. We're going to work them exactly like we did for the bottom portion of the top and not make any decreases. So single crochet into the next single crochet, and then work our little V cluster into the next chain 2 space by making our single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into that chain 2 space. And then continue all the way to the end, making the last single crochet right into that last single crochet stitch. And just to recap, what we're doing is we're making the decreases at the beginning of the first 2 rows, and then we're working 4 normal rows. So this is a total of 6 rows, and we're going to repeat these 6 rows 3 times for the smallest 3 sizes. So that's extra small to medium. And then for the larger sizes, we're going to do this 4 times. So continue along until you're at the very end of the last repeat, and then I'll show you how to make the final row. Okay, I've completed the decrease rows 3 times, and now I'm ready to complete the final row. As you can see, the top of the stitch is really bumpy, and I like the look of when it's nice and flat, so I'm going to show you how to flatten out the top with the final row. Chain 1 and single crochet into the first single crochet. And then in the next chain 2 space, instead of working our V cluster, all we're going to do is work 2 single crochets into that chain 2 space. And then we'll work 2 single crochets into each chain 2 space all the way along to the end of the row. And then once we reach the end of the row, make a single crochet into that last single crochet, and this will flatten out the top. And once you finish the row, you can cut your yarn and fasten off. So all you have to do now is weave in the ends, make a second identical panel, and then I will show you how to connect the 2 at the sides. Okay, we're ready to seam the sides together. So what you want to do is line up the 2 panels so that the sides are so that they're one on top of the other, and it doesn't really matter which side is facing each other because this stitch is reversible. Once they're lined up, you may want to take a little safety pin or a stitch marker to attach them, just to make sure that your stitches are lined up and that your seam is not all wonky. Okay, now we're ready to start seaming the sides together. So we'll begin with one side and we'll thread a needle with some yarn, leaving a really long tail so that we can weave in the end, and attach it at the bottom corner of the top. So do your best to line up the edges as best as you can, and then simply whip stitch all the way up along the seam, trying to make sure that the panels are aligned as you go. You also want to make sure that you're not seaming it too tightly. So after every few stitches, just give it a little pull, and you can even check on the other side to make sure that it's not cinching in too much. So once you reach the top, make a little knot and then repeat the process for the other side. The next step will be to work on the straps. So Continue on seaming and then flip your work inside out and we can begin crocheting the straps together. Okay, so most of the hard work is done now. All we have to do is add the straps and then crochet the edging around the bottom. So for the straps, what we're going to do is make a slip knot and attach our yarn with a slip stitch at one of the top corners of one of the panels. And then we're going to make a chain of about 28 stitches. And this is where we can kind of adjust it as needed. So you might want to try the top on and see how it looks and see how tight you want your chain to be. Just make sure that you stretch it completely because that's how it's going to fit. So for my measurements, I did a strap of about 10 inches stretched, which is 28 chains. So it's a good idea for you to try it on and see how long you want to make your strap. But in general, around 10 to 11 inches is what you want to aim for. Now attach the chain to the top corner of the facing panel with another slip stitch. And then this is where we're going to begin single crocheting around the armhole to tidy it up. So we'll chain one and then single crochet right back into that same stitch to create our first single crochet of the round. And then working all the way around the armhole, we'll single crochet around the edge until we make it right back to where we started. So once you've crocheted into the final chain of the strap, you want to connect to the first single crochet of the round with a slip stitch. And then you're just going to work one more round around the strap and armhole again. So chain one, single crochet into the same stitch, and then single crochet into each single crochet all the way back around, joining with a slip stitch and then fastening off. So repeat this process for the second strap and armhole, and then I will show you how to crochet the bottom edging, which is the final piece of this top. Okay, we're almost done. So the next step is to attach the yarn at the bottom of one of the side seams with a slip stitch. So we'll make a slip knot and put it around our hook and then insert the hook into one of the little corner stitches. It doesn't really matter exactly where, just try and find a nice tight spot. And then attach it with a slip stitch and chain one. Then single crochet back into the same stitch. So this is the first single crochet of the round. So now we're going to single crochet all the way around the bottom edging. And what we're going to do is work one single crochet into each chain two space gap that was part of our foundation chain, and then also single crochet into the bottom of each of those little V clusters that we made. So when you're working around and you're looking into the spaces, you'll see that there's like a little bar above the gaps. Try and grab that bar when you're single crocheting into the stitches so that there's no like, if you don't do that, there'll be a space between the single crochets and the bottom of your foundation chain, and it's not as nice looking. So try and grab that little bar just to make your stitches tighter. So what we're doing is we're actually single crocheting 2/3 of the stitches all the way around. Because we're in the chain 2 spaces, we're only working 1 single crochet. And the reason for this is just to cinch in the waist a little bit. Otherwise, the bottom of the top will be a little bit like loose and baggy looking, and it's just not really pretty. It kind of almost looks ruffled. So you want to make sure that you end up with about 2/3 of the stitches when you're working around the bottom edge. And it's not an exact science. So if you're off by a few stitches, it's okay. So for example, if you're making a size medium, you want to take the number of the foundation chain, which is I think 75 stitches, multiply that by 2, and then times that by 2/3. So you're multiplying it by 2 so that you can have the front and back panel stitches accounted for. And then take 2/3 of that number, and that should be the amount of stitches you have all the way around. And then again, so if it's not exactly, I think for the medium-sized top, you should end up with 100 stitches around. So say you have like, I don't know, 102 or 98. Don't worry about it. As long as it feels like it looks good and it's not too tight or too loose, you're good. So work all the way around the bottom border and then join with a slip stitch to the first single crochet, just like we did for the armholes when working in the round. And then single crochet for 4 more rounds, so you have a total of 5 rounds for the bottom edging. And that's it. So once you've done that, you can fasten off, weave in all your ends, and you have your brand new festival tank top. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe, as it really helps my channel grow. And of course, don't forget to check out the description box below for any links and materials that you'll need.